Hi, I'm Guillaume. I had paralysis for 17 years and I have decided to talk about this topic because it's still a taboo and it's not normal because it's something that a lot of people are suffering from, and I've decided to talk about it openly. So in this video, firstly, I will talk about what is paralysis, what are the causes, and does it concern you really? Because there are different trouble related to not being able to pee. In the second part, I will talk about the behaviors we develop and the kind of technique we set up when we have a shy bladder syndrome. I will also talk about the fact that, should I talk or not about it to others, close to me. And finally, I will talk to you about how you can overcome paralysis for good. So what is paralysis, or also known as shy bladder syndrome? Basically, it is the fact of not being able to pee in public places when we know that we can be seen, heard, or that we are in a hurry, like we have to do it in a certain time. So basically what happens, it's like when you live with paralysis, it's like you just go to the bathroom, you go in front of the urinal or whatever, and well, basically nothing wants to come out, sometimes you can feel it's coming, and then bam, there is an external trigger, such as someone entering the restroom, a noise. It can be, everybody has different triggers. There can be one or several, but basically most common one is the presence of someone else. And so you feel it starts to come, and then there's this trigger, and bam, it's like block. Your bladder is totally blocked, and you can stay for 5 minutes in front of the urinal, nothing will come out. So even if you don't have yourself shy bladder syndrome, you can understand that it's very, very, very embarrassing because peeing is something we have to do every day, and we cannot hold it forever because it's extremely painful when the bladder is overfilled, and it can be dangerous over time. Like it's not a good situation to be in, basically. So it's something that is very painful and very embarrassing. So where does paralysis come from? Basically, first of all, we have to know that it's classified as a social phobia, meaning that it's an irrational fear. So it is something that is happening in our head. And like most of the phobias, basically it comes from some kind of traumas or some beliefs we have built in ourselves, like programs we are running. And so once this program is installed, basically it blocks us from peeing. In general, it appears in our teenage year, most of the case around like 15, 17, something like that. And most of the time, we don't know where it comes from. We can have an idea sometimes, but most of the time it appears like that that was the day before we had no problem, and then just one day, bam, it comes without notice. And so yeah, it's basically a mental construction and something that is happening in our head. So there are several kinds of paralysis. Basically, everyone being affected by this thing has a different level, but we can distinguish basically two categories: the heavy form of paralysis, the severe form, which basically means that people cannot pee at all if there's someone in a close vicinity, and it makes it impossible to take long flight trains, even being at home when the family is around, at work if there is colleague around, stuff like that. So it makes the life very, very complicated, and most of the time people have to adjust their lifestyle to around the shy bladder syndrome. The other kind there is a mild one, mild paralysis, and in that case, well, we still block, but in certain condition we can do it. For example, if we can have an enclosed cubicle where the door acts as a protection barrier, for example, then it can allow us to pee. Not always, but it can. And so it eases up a bit some situation compared to the people who have a very severe case of paralysis. So how many people are really touched by this phobia? According to Steven Seufer, who is the author of the book The Secret Social Phobia, around 4 to 7% of the population is concerned by this phobia, although it's very difficult to know exactly, to have an exact figure, because it's not something people talk about really. And also an interesting point is that 90% of the people who seek help are actually men. So it looks like it's affecting more men than women, although women are also concerned by this thing. But it seems there's a tendency towards men being more touched by this thing. So what are the kind of behavior and tricks we set up when we are affected by the shy bladder syndrome? Well, the first one we develop is to be aware of where the toilet is and who is going in and who is going out. So in a way we become what I call a super spy, because we always have an eye on this door. Even though we are with friends or whatever, we unconsciously start to have an eye on our friends and one eye on the restroom door. And just to know when is the best moment we can jump in and try to have the best chance possible to be able to pee without anyone, or at the least people possible in the bathroom. Another thing we do once we get there and we are in front of the urinal, for example, and that's a basic technique, but we know the problem is in our mind, that is thinking too much. So to try to make the void up there, we start by fixing a point on the wall and then praying, basically. You know, we try to fix a point, make void here, and pray that the WC opens up. Most of the time it doesn't. And so yeah, that's the other technique. Another behavior we develop is we start drinking, because especially in bars or restaurants and stuff like this, because as everybody knows, alcohol loosens us up, makes us think less, makes us more stupid basically. And because the brain basically is half asleep, when we are in front of the toilet is thinking less, and then it can finally leave the bladder do its job. And so alcohol might help, but it's not obviously something we can recommend, because alcohol is not good for health, and it's not something we can always have under our hand or whatever. So it's can be useful when we are in the 20s, but when we reach 30s or 40s, it's not something that is advisable, basically. In the more global behavior, we can start to refuse social events. For example, going to a concert, going to a very crowded bar or very crowded mall or something like that. Something where we know we will have trouble in advance. We know we will have trouble, so we might refuse. And this way, well, separate ourselves from some social life event, basically. And for some people, like I said before, they cannot travel, they cannot see the world, they cannot enjoy some quality moment with their family. So it's basically it's at the beginning we start to adjust, but for some people or after some time, basically we adjust our life to live with the paralysis, and that's it's not good because it can affect our whole life then also, of course, but also our moral and our state of mind. Those are techniques or behavior we develop when we have paralysis. There are tons of it. I'm not gonna cite them all, but basically you can easily understand that the more we have these things, the more we develop tricks and tips to cope with the phobia. So another thing that is hard to explain unless you have had this thing is the fear to talk about it to others. It's extremely difficult to talk about it to others because most of the time when we have paralysis, we think we are the only one in the world because, well, nobody is talking about it around us, and it's extremely difficult to basically tell someone, man, I can't pee. And especially when you are a man and you know we live in a society where man needs to be strong and don't cry and all this bullshit. And it's extremely difficult to talk about it to even our close one, like our wife or husband or parents or whatever. It's extremely embarrassing topic to talk about. And so what we do, basically we start to close ourselves. In general, we start to close on ourselves, thinking we are the only one in the world. And every time we go to the loo and we fail, we come back from where we come from, but we have this mental chatter, those rumination going on, those dark thoughts, like why me? Why can't I pee like everyone, and I'm not normal, and blah 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 and blah blah blah. And so we are basically living with dark thoughts all the time. I mean, each time we fail, basically. And well, it doesn't take much to understand that when you live like that for decades, it can really ruin your moral. I mean, this thing is serious in some case, or luckily not everyone, but in some case, it can break up families, it can break up marriage, you can lose your job for that. And in some severe case, people will go into a depression, and the worst of the worst, of course, it can lead to suicide. But we can easily understand that it's something extremely embarrassing and something that will basically take you down. Okay, so what can we do about it? Basically, there is two kind of solution. There is a short-term solution that just working on unblocking us temporarily, and a long-term solution that are actually treating the root cause of the phobia, and that can free us totally. So first of all, the short-term method can include, for example, drugs like anxiolytics that basically numb our brain and will allow us to pee, a bit like the same kind of, almost like alcohol. And a second option is the catheter, where we put something to drain the urine from our bladder. And this can allow some people to, for example, take a long flight, travel in peace, or go to some event without nobody knowing it. It's just that they are emptying their bladder with a mechanical system, basically. And another technique is called the breath hold or breath holding, where it's something you need to practice to master. I will describe it in another video. But basically the principle is to hold our breath, so the CO2 level in body increase. And CO2, one of its properties is that it dilates basically muscles, and it will dilate the bladder and the muscle, I mean the muscles that are around the bladder, and allows the flow of urine to start. So it's a technique that is not everyone managed to master, but it's a short-term solution for people who are really struggling. So in the range of long-term solution, there are two main things. The first one, the one recommended by Steven Soifer from the book I recommended before, is gradual exposition. So what does it mean? It means, well, to practice with someone, to expose ourselves, to pee in front of someone, and increasing the difficulty over time. So for example, at the beginning, it can start very far, behind the door, then we open the door, and it comes closer and closer and closer. And like that, we can get used to the fear, basically, and overcome it over time. It can take a very, very long time, and it's not easy to put in practice because we have to find a partner to do that, but it's something that is efficient. Other methods that exist are all kinds of techniques that are today well proven to be efficient against phobias, like hypnosis, EFT, EMDR, and all kinds of other CBT therapies that can be used to treat really the root cause and basically accept our fear and deal with the trauma we had, even though we might not remember them, but really tackling the root cause of the problem and get free. So to conclude this video, paralysis of shy bladder is a nightmare. It's really a nightmare to live with this thing. And if you are really motivated to tackle it, to overcome it, then just go below this video where you will find links to useful resources for you to take your first step towards freedom and really to overcoming your shy bladder. I'll see you in another video. Take care. Bye bye.